What's up, man?
It's all good. Super busy, super crazy.
Yeah, dude, appreciate you for taking the time to do this. It'll be good to get an introduction about you first.
My name is Marouen. I'm originally from Tunisia. So that's where I was raised and born, North Africa. The usual journey there is that you probably will study. If you're good, you become an engineer or a finance person. Typically go to Europe and work there. I made a choice of not wanting to do that. So I went to France, I studied there engineering, and I wanted to go outside of Europe. So that's where I left and I joined a startup in the US. That was the beginning of the journey and took me for maybe 10 to 12 years of enterprise journey. Funny enough, as actually the first company that I joined was an open source project. It was a business process management called Intalio. It was a massive open source at that time. So it was really interesting to see how an open source company tries to make revenue, right? In the early days of SaaS and whatnot, and how does it work? Worked there a bit. They offered me to join their team in Asia, actually to be their team in Asia. So that's where I came to Singapore back in 2011, stayed with them for a couple of years and started jumping a couple of companies. The biggest stint in Web2 before moving into Web3 was actually with a company called OutSystems. It's a low-code, no-code platform. It's an amazing thing at that time whereby we used to go to these big companies and tell them, hey, we can build enterprise software for you, but without coding. And you can imagine the looks from the engineers. No, will never work.
Right.
But then some of the clients we got is just when we mention them and show what people have built with low code, they just blow their mind. For example, the Singapore Ministry of Defense, their whole military procurement system to buy pencils and airplanes is built as a no code platform.
Wow.
That was one of the mega projects we worked in. It's like we definitely actually, that was a great reference. Toyota also running a lot of systems like that. It's a big enterprise, MOM, but a bunch of governments and enterprises actually are using no code because it helps with speeding up the initial build, but also the maintenance becomes a bit less. And then a few years later, I think I stayed there for 6 years. And at one point I was doing a deal with the government of Brunei to build a DID system that has a blockchain in the backbone. And then the front is an app. So we were doing this app part in no code. And I met Consensys as the blockchain company working on that. Consensys, for those who don't know, is actually the company behind MetaMask, Linear, all of that. And then when we finished the project, I looked at Charles, who used to lead the APAC team there. And like, listen, I really would love to come and work on blockchain. Like this is something that inspired me during the work. And between you and me, I just wanted something new at that point. And there was two options. There was AI and there was blockchain. Those are the two things that at the time, I think it's 2020. And philosophically, I was more like, all right, blockchain is more interesting coming from like the global South, independence, decentralization, etc., all of that good stuff. So I said, okay, AI can wait. But here we are, building an AI right now. And just this full circle. I spent actually a couple of years with Consensys. I was leading BD on certain aspects, MetaMask for DeFi, worked with a lot of DeFi projects, fascinating world. Linear was starting to be built as well at that point. So building the ecosystem there. I was like, all right, these L2 have serious power behind them and I can look into it. So that's where I wanted to go to a company that just does that. Consensys is a big company, so they do a lot of projects left and right, and maybe the focus is not there. But Polygon came on the line. I was like, all right, I can join Polygon and actually do the business development for APAC. So I joined Polygon in 2023. And then I was leading the APAC team for business development. Again, amazing thing. There's a lot of actually stablecoin use cases, a lot of dApps, a lot of builders, gaming as well, working with Immutable, a lot of good learnings. Until early last year, I met my co-founder. And after seeing so many actually, Web3 has this thing, which is there's a lot of startups. It's a lot of builders. So after working with many of them as a BD on the other side, I was like, you know what, I think I could do something with it. So when I met Eric, my co-founder, we started bouncing some ideas and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to go and start this company. So that's where we set up Crestal Network. The main goal at that point was to simplify app development in Web3. Like we wanted to have a magic way that you come and say your intent, say what you want to achieve. And then the system, decentralized system behind assembles the pieces and gives you the building blocks. And then because it's blockchain, you can, of course, you have a lot of utilization with proof of performance. Does it work well? Should you pay for what promised to you, etc. So that was the thing we played with early last year. And that morphed into AI agents are a form of apps. And then AI agents are apps that could be built by non-developers, by retail. And so that's where, of course, where we are right now.
Let's jump into Crestal then. Why? I want to maybe just start off like when I first saw it, there was like I guess it's still the focus is on this like no code and the ability for people to go through a form and to create this AI agent. Like, why did you start off there? Don't you think it's not very early?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the answer, you can guess it, right? We are startup founders, so we have to be early, right? We have to try to anticipate the movement. But to be honest, like the thing that we noticed at that time, I think it was a couple of months back when we looked at all the AI agent narrative coming up, is that there was a couple of examples, like there was the Truth Terminal, the XPT, the ELIZA, and all of them, of course, got a lot of attention, but none of them was accessible to the public. If I tell anybody, all right, ELIZA, do you know how to build anything with it? They wouldn't know. And so there was this gap that we saw, is that people see these agents, they say, this is really cool. And what they want to do, some of them, of course, want to trade them so they can go and trade, but many people want to build them, to use them. And so that was the pain point that we have identified and bet on. Is let's open this closed world to the general public and see what comes out of it. And that's really the main feedback that we keep getting from our community right now. It's like amazing. I can build something that I thought I would never be able to build. And it demystifies a little bit like all these hyped projects on crypto. Oh, this agent can do and that, isn't that? Here, 5 minutes. Like you have some version of it and you can continue from there. So that's really the main driver of this. That's the gap we noticed. We saw some other projects that promised that. I think there was in the period of December to January, there was a lot of, I have an agent and we're going to launch a platform so you can also build the same. And many of them actually shut down, failed. Like they didn't even manage to launch because it's not easy to build that. We saw projects like Virtual, which leaned more aggressively into the trading part. Like today, if you want to build something on Virtual, you can't. You just have to figure out on your own and then come launch your token there, right? So that's there. ELIZA has been saying we're going to have this ELIZA loan builder app. It never delivered as well. Some projects like ZeroPi, which we're looking at very closely from their open source repository, stopped the maintenance as well. So all of these were signals that we saw in the market for nobody serious is actually filling that gap.
Why did ZeroPi abandon the project? Why do you think that happened?
I think really for a dev to build an open source framework, whether that's Python or Rust that can deploy an agent, it's not complicated. You can always fork like any of the initial designs and you can launch an agent or two. But taking that and scaling it into a model where now, of course, there is an app on top of it, but then also there is hosting, there is quality control, there is logs, there is maintenance, deploying that agent, how secure is it, who controls it, how do you update it? These things are extremely difficult. And I'm amazed by what the team did in the last 5 months or so, because in TentKit, we could publish like the first version fairly early, like I would say early December or late December. But then most of the work since then has been to tighten the deployment flow, hosting flow, payment flow, updating flow, sharing flow, using flow. Like all of these are user experience things and they're very sophisticated. And I'm lucky that my team is, all of these are crypto people, but they're very serious, like Web2 experienced developers. And the things that we're dealing with on the server side, on the front end, back end, I'm going to be blunt. I don't think a lot of Web3 builders have that experience yet.
Right. It seems to me that this is the open source like approach where, for instance, you have projects like Caldera or Confluent, where they built this, like people who have built, for instance, Kafka or all these projects, they built this open source thing and the business comes from the hosting, the scaling, the management. Is that the path that you see one part of where you're going?
I mean, definitely that's the open source, enterprise open source formula. So the Red Hat model has been like, okay, everything is open source. Everybody can use it, but good luck. Yeah. So we have these experienced teams that can host it for you, can maintain it, can support it. And that's what you would pay us for. And that's what makes Red Hat a multi-billion-dollar company, although their whole software is open source, which is something people don't understand. They think open source is free. Actually, no, open source is verifiability, it's contribution, which is now you can see in TentKit what's inside, what's not inside. If you have an idea, you can contribute to it, you can add it. So that's the good part about it. But then the monetization aspect comes really from all of that managed service layer on top. And of course, from the outcome that you give, because to be honest, what we're building with Nation on top of TentKit is one option. Somebody can take it and build something completely different with it. Like I was thinking yesterday of other projects we can do if I have time, and they have nothing to do with Nation. They have nothing to do with crypto. I'll take an example. Right now, there is a big demand for enterprises and companies to build their own hosted agentic platform. Like they don't want to use OpenAI, they don't want to use anything because they have like proprietary data. They want to integrate to their own authentication system, to their own enterprise APIs. So you need a hosted kit essentially for agentic thing. And
Okay.
this is now they're paying like 50K, 100K per deployment, not even maintenance. Just like, can somebody come and install something in my office that uses my content, my APIs, authenticates my users so they can do work with it, with agents. So these are the things that the open source core can be used for. And so that's the power of it. You have this open thing, anybody can use it for any idea they have, but us, we focus on the nation part because that's how we believe is one of the use cases of it.
So what just now what we're talking about is the enterprise service part, like the product for the enterprise. And then the nations part seems to be more like a Web3 marketplace. How do you think about these two products or businesses? In fact, I actually think there's three parts. There is the nations part, there is this enterprise part, and then there is a core open source, let's say,
Yeah.
Kit. Are they feeding off each other, or are they taking resources away from each other?
IntentKit, the open source, is probably the easiest one to solve. If you build something meaningful and then find ways to engage with open source contributors, you don't need to do much work. They will actually do. Right now, we have about 15 or 20 contributors that they're comfortable with the kit. They can add pieces of software that we need, integrations that we need. And if that grows, then that takes care of itself. And it ultimately also, like, it just needs to reach a stable version. The core needs to reach a stable version, then the plugins and the add-ons, it just becomes like a free play. Now the enterprise and the Web3 part, like the nation fund and potential like enterprise agentic framework, these are two different things. And to be honest, we are a small team, so it's hard to do both. We have to prioritize one versus the other. And I was like, I think about this all the time. Like just this morning, I was like, all of these people that I spoke to and I pitched them the enterprise idea, I should follow up. I need like a small team of 2 or 3 BDs to go do that work. So yeah, these are the choices we're making. I wouldn't say that one is better than the other, but they have different tastes. One is a retail game, like you pitching to different users, you have different incentives, different mechanics. The other one is more of like serious deals. It's like, all right, we like your technology. Do you have a SOC 2 compliance report? I was like, all right, let me get that. All right, send me your OPSEC behavior where you host it. So it becomes like a whole business on its own.
Right.
So yeah, is to really launch the nation.fund part, get it running as an economy with people participating in like a self-feeding ecosystem. Once that's stable, then we can either grow as a team or also focus on the parts. That's the wish. I don't know if we can do it.
And just to understand then, are both of these underneath the hood using a similar product that you've built? Like they're all like both sides are like they're wrappers around the same core tool that
Correct.
you have made? Are they? Okay.
Correct. Essentially, the intent kit is the core of it, and intent kits can be deployed in containers. So you can just take it and deploy it on your own cloud, or you can host it for somebody else. Intent kit does not make any assumptions about how you pay for the services or what's the rules of this and that. That's the app layer. So if I was to build an app for enterprise, it would have different rules from the app for Web3. Simple case. Okay, how do you want to authenticate? You wouldn't go to enterprise and give them the same authentication mode of a wallet as you do in Web3. It's more integrate to Microsoft, to both single oath, whatever it is. So it's different wrappers around the same core technology.
I don't know if apps or skills, are they interchangeable words in this case?
Skills are probably, I would call them integrations.
Okay.
In an enterprise world, that would be your integration layer. Or right now we have, 150 skills, which are integration to data sources, integration to crypto stuff. I'll take, for example, data sources. Right now we have social sentiments coming through Cookie.fun or Alpha AI. Those are the two that we are using. If I go to an enterprise and I say, actually, I was talking to a marketing agency the other day, and they want to have an agent that goes and browses their socials to see what their competitors are posting about, and then come up with like strategies essentially of what to post. And then when I get sentiments about products, if I tell them use Alpha or Cookie, it will not work. Like the Cookie and Alpha are not monitoring the right things for them. So in their case, they'd be like, actually, that is this service that we know every marketing agency uses. It gives you sentiment on socials. Can you plug that in? I was like, all right. So we can build a skill very quickly to just integrate that. So I look at it. These are integrations, and each use case will care about different integration, even if the service looks similar.
And do you think that these integrations, when it's built for the enterprise versus when it's built for more retail or smaller business in between, do you think they're usable across? Or do you think they're very much just, let's say this marketing agency, they're as they're just siloed to this marketing agency? I don't know if network effect is the right word, but if I build a skill, then it benefits everybody in this network.
Not essentially, to be honest. And that's what we evaluate a lot of the conversations we have about skills. So we talk to a lot of protocols about integrating with them. And usually the case is determined by that protocol itself. Is your API for enterprise or for retail? That's the main question. So for example, we did the AI XBT API integration and we have it, but then to use it, you need an API key. You need to subscribe. And so when we asked the XBT team, where can people get it? They were like, we're not going to give it to people. These are enterprise deals. And so in that case, in this, I'll determine AI XBT as an enterprise skill only. Not everybody can use it. And then similar as well, like when you look at, I don't know, an enterprise, they would want to integrate to their CRM, right? To Salesforce, to see where the information is coming from. That's not a retail skill. Like it doesn't help them. Yep. So yeah, that's a lot of evaluation that happens. Okay, if I build the skill, it takes me usually a day or two, depending on complexity, how many people are going to benefit from it, how accessible it's going to be. And that's how some of the prioritization happens at this big. I'm prioritizing the nation.fun, then my rules of prioritization will be very different of skill building than enterprise. And that's really the decisions we have to make as a team.
I was curious about is, it seems to me that there is these 4 target users. For instance, the developer is building the skills library. The users are the ones that are choosing which agents to interact with. And I don't know if the investors are the ones that are just trading the tokens of these agents.
Yes.
The confusing one for me is the creators. I'm trying to understand, are creators also the developers? Are they interchangeable?
The journey that we want to have really is that you start as a user and you become a creator. So that's what we are doing. These are the 2 targets of the no code capabilities. These are the 2 groups that they don't require coding skills. And so the journey that we offer everybody is you come to the nation, you check the trenches, you check some of the sample agents there, and then you're like, all right, I think I can create something for ourselves. So they can do that in a couple of ways. Today, the way they can do it, they click new agent, there is 5 steps they fill up, and then they get something. Now they have become a creator. They came from a user, become creator. The other way that we're going to add probably this week or next is from a prompt. They don't want to go through the 5 steps. They'll just put a prompt and say, I want to create an agent that trades BTC every 3 hours. And then the 5 steps will get filled for them automatically and then they can start using it. Even that could still be a bit sophisticated for some people. It's like, all right, I prompted, I got these 5 screens. It's asking me to confirm. I don't know what to confirm. And then usually after you confirm, you have to do a couple of tests and refine. So there is a bit of a creation process, right? That's where the third way that we're going to introduce soon is copying in existing agents. So a more advanced creator has built a trading agent. You see it, you like how it interacts, you like what it does. You don't want to deal with the creation part, you just click copy. And now you have actually that template applied to you. And so all these 3 modes is really to target these transformations from user to creator and doesn't require coding. Developers, on the other hand, are the ones contributing to Intent Kit. So the simplest thing, you need some Python skills and understanding what's the third-party system. So if I'm a dev that I want to add, for example, Aave deposits and withdrawals, I need to understand the Aave APIs and I need to wrap them in LangChain using Python and add them as a PR to Intent Kit.
I want to just take a quick step back. It's actually very interesting that you came from Tunisia, because my exposure to Tunisia came in the 2 parts. So when I was young, I grew up in Hong Kong and I played rugby, and the Tunisia actually had a 7s rugby team. I was like, not bad.
I can do a podcast on what happened in the Hong Kong with the Tunisia team.
Oh, really?
Actually, it's a funny story. So I was there.
Oh, wow.
I went a couple of years back before COVID. We went to watch the rugby 7s in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And the reason we went because we saw Tunisia is playing.
Yeah.
Damn it, I didn't know we had rugby teams. We go check it out. Yeah. And so we go to the first day. I think there was like Friday and Saturday or something like that. And so we go to the Friday games and we watch them. They're like, not great. There's a lot of slipping and so on. And we lost, right? So we got kicked out. And so we go out to one side to some of the bars and we had them wearing our Tunisian outfits. We had the flag hanging up at some of the bars. Okay. And there is this guy that starts walking by and he's like, are you guys Tunisian? I was like, yeah, I'm part of the rugby 7s team. So he calls his friends and then they all come there. And actually we had a crazy night. There was rugby players shirtless in front of the bar, showing everybody how to do a scrum,
Okay.
to do everything. And so I was like, okay, good on them. It's first experience. And they were telling us budget was small and we couldn't, that's why we couldn't perform well. So had fun that year, came back the next year. And so came back the next year, the performance was even worse.
Yeah.
I didn't even play as well. And then I was like, screw it. Let's go to the bar. And so I go to the bar. I find them all waiting there already.
Oh,
I was expecting Star Wars.
Star Wars?
Yeah, Tatooine is in Tunisia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the planet Tatooine is in Tunisia. So
Wow.
the first original Lucasfilm actually was filmed in Tunisia, where Skywalker is that hut and that village that he grew up in. That's actually a historic village in Tunisia.